Once upon a time, in the heart of Africa, in the middle of the world along the Atlantic Ocean, existed an empire of great lakes, rivers, lions, leopards, precious stones, and civilized people. The empire existed 100 years before the 15th century and was developed, powerful, strong, and prosperous. It will be destroyed later by European invasion, slavery, civil wars, and looting of its minerals. It is also known as the Kingdom of Kongo. Congo, Diane Tortilla. Kingdom of Kongo, in search of the destroyed kingdom. Congo, Diane Tortilla. You may have heard about the Kingdom of Kongo, but you may not fully comprehend the magnificence of this once great African empire. My team and I will take you on a journey, and we will introduce you to the great Kingdom of Kongo. The Kingdom of Kongo that you're about to discover here was a vast territory located between Central and Southwest Africa, along the Atlantic coast. It covered several states: today's Angola, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Republic of Congo on the other side of the Congo River, Gabon, and the southern part of Cameroon. These states constitute mere tokens of the kingdom's vastness, as noted African historians, anthropologists, and archaeologists have all stated that the kingdom covered a much larger area, possibly encompassing more than 2,500,000 kilometers squared, and even extended from Guinea, the Atlantic coast, the Great Lakes region to Zambia and Namibia. Today's big cities such as Banza, Congo, Kinshasa, Brazzaville, Luanda, Soyo, Matadi, Boma, Moanda, Cabinda, Pointe-Noire, Ouidji, to name but a few, are all situated within this vast kingdom. But firstly, what does the word Congo mean? We undertook hours of diligent research and consulted with several noted historians, sociologists, African anthropologists, and we also explored the oral tradition of the Congo people. According to the writer and sociologist Raphael Bachikama Ba Mampuya Manwala, in his book The Ancient Kingdom of the Congo and the Bakongo, the word Congo has several meanings and does not belong to any one cohort. It is an etymological adoption made by the Congo people in order to evoke memories, emotions, and hopes. Notably, Congo has been defined as encompassing the suffering that they will endure for the realization of this immense project. Congo comes from the word Konga, meaning to search, to research, to be in search of, and to explore. Congo also means troops and assembled crowds, denoting the power that belongs to the people. This multi-layered, multifaceted word also describes the spherical shape intended for this enterprise. In this sense, Congo, deriving from the verb kongeka, also means to bend, thus describing the cyclical nature of all things. The sociologist and anthropologist Mawete Makisosila also affirms that Congo is a totemic name of a territory, a river, a people, and even humanity. He describes the humanity of the people of the Congo territory as being similar to the power of the leopard because Ngo means leopard in Kikongo. And it needs mentioning that the Congo language remains one of the oldest languages of Africa. According to the Congo oral tradition, the term Congo was used to describe God up until the emergence of ancient Egypt, otherwise known as Kemet, where the term Kongeka meant divine spirit. Among the Congo people, it is also used to describe the Creator, because before the arrival of Christianity in the 15th century, the Congo ancestors, already knowing the existence of the Creator, called him Ne Kunda, or Ne Kalunga, meaning omnipresent. Also, Ne Kunda, meaning omnipotent, and Ne Kunda, meaning omniscient. Congo is also an appellation of the divine spirit of the waters, of the language Ne Kunda Kongo. In summary, we have discovered that all definitions given correspond to the realities of the Congo people. From London to Luanda, we start our research at the National Slavery Museum in Benfica, Luanda, Angola, founded in 1977 by the National Institute for Cultural Heritage. In this museum, the memory of the Kingdom of Kongo is partially documented through historical portraits and cultural artifacts. In the 17th century, our captured Congo ancestors were imprisoned in this chapel of the Catholic Church and then baptized by Catholic priests before being forced into the holds of ships to be sold as slaves in the so-called New World. The findings in the museum push us to delve more deeply in order to better understand not just the great Kingdom of Kongo, but also its great people. According to some Congo sources, the genealogy or descendants of the Congo people are strongly linked to the ancestor mother called Nzinga, the ancestor mother of the Congo, descendant of the male ancestor called Nkuwu. As the Congo say, Bawonso Batuka Mu Nzinga Wazinga Mvila Zawonso, meaning the strain of all the Congo people is Nzinga, the one who surrounds and protects them. Originally, the ancestor Nkuwu was married to a woman who gave birth to a girl by the name of Nzinga A Nkuwu, who is not to be confused with King Nzinga Nkuwu of the 15th century. The young Nzinga Anunkulu, the daughter of the ancestor Nkulu, marries Nimi and later gives birth to 3 children, 2 sons, Insaku Animi and Impanzu Animi, and a girl of exceptional beauty called Lukeni Luwa Nzinga, whose descendants are represented by this portrait. Lukeni Luwa Nzinga gives birth to 12 children, among them a male child named Nimi Alukeni Luwa Nzinga, who according to sources will later create the Kingdom of Kongo. Nzinga and Nkulu's 3 children constitute the Makuku, Matatu, Malambilu, and Kongo. These 3 pillars, or 3 houses, are the strains of the Kongo clans. Insaku, Impanzu, and Nzinga later gave birth to the Kongo nation and settled in the heart of Africa. The 3 clans represent the 3 powers: Insaku, the spiritual power; Impanzu, the crafts, metallurgy, and scientific power; and Nzinga, the political power. In other words, the descendants of Insaku are destined to deal with the spirituality of the kingdom, those of Impanzu, the sciences, and those of Nzinga, the politics. Today, the Congo peoples are made up of several groups: the Manyanga, the Mboma, the Nsundi, the Mbembe, the Ntandu, the Yombe, the Vili, the Lari, the Zombo, and so many others. In addition, all the people of the present territory of the Kongo in the former province of Bandundu, the Yaka, the Lonzo, the Mbata, the Suku, and more are of Congo. After our moving visit to the Slavery Museum, we take a quick tour to the island of Mosul on the other side of the ocean, another place where the enslaved African was held captive. To better understand the origin of the Congo people, it is important to go back further, to go back to protohistoric times. In the Congo ancestral oral tradition, the first ancestors of all humanity are called Nzalampanda, denoting the male ancestor, and Kitele Kanambu, the female, both with black skin, who lived in Lake Nyanza, or present-day Lake Victoria, in Tanzania. These early ancestors gave birth to 12 children, whose heights ranged from tall, medium, to short. The taller children would later go on to populate the north and the south of the African continent, whilst the shorter ones remained in the center of the continent. Congo historians and anthropologists affirm that our ancestors emigrated from the center of Africa, following the source of the Nile River, and later settled in the Nile Valley and built Ethiopia or Catio It is from this migratory movement that the Congo people will begin to create their own empire. The creation of the Kingdom of Kongo evolved through phases. The era of Congo Dia Mpangala I, the era of Congo Dia Molaza II, the era of Congo Dia Mpanzu III, and the era of Zita Dianza, often named the nucleus. Indeed, around 320 of the Gregorian calendar, under the guidance of the prophet Nsasu Kulu A Nkanda, the Congo people settled in the lands of Kwandu, Kubangu, Okovambu, and Kunene. They built the first home of the kingdom, the Congo Diampangala in Zulu Tadi, with its capital Kempemba in Benguela to the southwest. Speaking of the kingdom of Benguela, in reality, the Congo sources only refer to the Congo Dia Mpangala, the first home of the Congo kingdom, which by translation is called Benguela, instead of Mbangala. Supported by the ancestral oral tradition of Congo and various authors, we have found that the first home of the Congo people began in the south, near the Kalahari Desert, in an extremely hot and arid zone, from where it gains its name, Mbangala. The region was populated by the Ovumbundu, Shokwe, and Nyanyaka Nkumbi. According to the historian Patricio Bachikama Ba Mampuya, the grandson of the writer Raphael Bachikama, some linguistic approaches tend to confirm to us that the first domain of the Congo kingdom would have started in the south. And from vocabularies such as Yanduka, Kiyangala, Inca Congo, the Congo believed that their state started in the south in the country of the hot climate. In addition, information pertaining to the oral tradition collected by priests Bernardo de Gallo, Jerome de Montesaccio in the 17th century, and by Jean Cavalier, Joseph de Monk in the 18th century, concludes that the first established capital was in the Nzanza Nkatu, literally translates to mean no world, which also means desert. And since the African continent has two deserts, they opt for the Kalahari, which is in the south, as being the first home of the Congo kingdom. And from a toponymic point of view, authors such as Delachaux point out the toponym of Mbangala, situated in the southern part of Angola. And we have also found that among the Congo, the word Mbangala denotes the time, or the season of great heat. In 424 of the Gregorian calendar, under the guidance of the prophet Kodi Powanga, the Congo advanced to the east and occupied the lands of Kwangu, Luangu, Kwilu, Lulua, and built a second home, the Congo Dia Mulaza, or Congo Dia Kwimba, the country between Luangu and Kwangu, with Kahemba and Feshi as capitals, and which in time will extend to the region of Kinshasa or Pool Malebo. In 529 of the Gregorian calendar, under the leadership of the prophet Netuti Diatia, Congo people continued to expand their state in the north and occupy the land of Nzaza Vumba, the plateaus of Bateke, and they built the third home, the Congo dia Mpanzu or Congo dia Luangu. Around the 6th century of the Gregorian calendar, under the leadership of Nimi A Lukeni, the Congo occupied the lands of Kwanza and built in the center the city of Banza, Congo, which from now on will constitute the nucleus, the domain of the king and the capital of the political and administrative institutions of the Congo kingdom. Thus, the spherical form as mentioned by sociologist Raphael Basikama is concretized.
Chegamos aqui em Banza, Congo, na terra patrimônio mundial. Você anda a escutar o Banza, Congo, é aqui, patrimônio mundial. Yeah. Muito obrigado, seja bem-vindo.
Obrigado.
Na nossa terra, Banza, Congo.
Muito obrigado.
Yeah, obrigado.
Estou onde ele quiser.
Okwako kumbanza Congo. Luanga o Banza, Congo, patrimônio mundial. Ivata jetu lya Congo lya ntotela idi adidi luwango nsango kadi kuna mputu kadi kuna kwako inkonso país kaka luwango Banza Congo patrimônio mondial iyaye watu beki va vata jetu lya Banza Congo ya
On va vous faire découvrir les sites touristiques du royaume Congo. We arrive in Banza, Congo. You're gonna see and you're gonna discover the sites of the Kingdom of Kongo, especially the city of Banza, Congo, which was the capital of the Kingdom of Congo. Come with me. Ça, c'est là où nous allons rester avec toute l'équipe. Je trouve que c'est déjà une belle maison. Hein? On va adorer.
Okay, merci. Soyez les bienvenus à Banza, Congo.
entrer.
Unbelievable. Ouais. Donc, c'est vraiment joli, c'est magnifique. Donc, c'est la parcelle. C'est là où nous allons rester pendant quelques jours pour faire le travail.
The city of Banza, Congo, otherwise known as Zita de Anza, the center of the world, was the capital of the Congo Kingdom and the central headquarters for its institutions. This is where the King of Congo, Ne Kongo, or Intinu a Congo, and the central government were installed. Today, it is located in the north of Angola, in the province of Zaire, with an area of 7,953 kilometers squared. In January 2018, the area was recognized as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. With our team, we eagerly head into the town to explore the ancient site. The bell rings. It's time for the hearing. Local people appeal to the court. The traditional chiefs of Lumbu symbolically represent the royal court and sit in Banza, Congo, situated within the grounds of the last residence of the King of Congo, which today has become the museum of previous Congo kings. Amongst his prerogatives, the Angolan state recognizes its right to judge land matters and conflicts between disgruntled clan members. But before starting the session, the participants are given instructions.
Wana makenzo ke bekuilang ke kongulungan ngake ngaka wate. Membuat pante tuko. Kamu tuh kopa, songan lembo, kemudian bukan kurang na lusi. Abang le pada bangai yang saya tuan tak bangai bukan pada cuma nyanyi senang aja. Depo jangan kata, abang buat itu masih somar, ini malu, ini lah malu, leadership.
Era assim dar conselhos antes de iniciar o ritual, aquelas coisas. Coisa boa.
Eu vou provar com o tu. Jangan minta. Kalau itu memang itu oke. Provar com o tu. Mungkin yang kayak aku mudah terfirman luan. Ileka mau berapa pun dramos. Tidak luar kau pun punya kita yang kaya edu angin tidak mesti namun kita kau bisa bom tidak luar pun luar ini luar kita yang kaya abang kawan bapak itu berdua makan ini semua ada juga kita mau melakukan kita melakukan dengan kong. Kita luar pun boleh. Ujian, ujian orang kaya.
Oh, itu di masih sambut apa?
Lili.
Apa nak buat? Buat mulu kesalahan dari kau buat
Somos daqui para Ne Kunda Nlaba. Ele vira do Banza. E a parte dos pais são de Congo. Também tem coisa do Banza, chamado eu sou da parte do meu pai, sou de Vila do e a parte da mamãe, a saco no fundo.
Ne Kunda Nlaba, mwana Suliboma, fumu Lumbanzeka.
We introduce ourselves to Lumbu and explain the purpose of our visit. With the authorization now granted, we must wait until we are given some guides who will take us to the historical sites. But in the meantime, we take the opportunity to attend the traditional judgment. As you can see, it will take place on this mat. The complainant introduces herself and must sit down on the mat in order to explain her problem. Being a developed, strong and prosperous state, the Kingdom of Kongo was ruled centrally by an authority that the Portuguese compared to their own, Ne Kongo or Kingdom of Kongo, a descendant of the Nzinga clan, who were the holders of the political power among the Congo. But his enthronement was always made by Nsaku, the spiritual leader, the descendant of the Nsaku clan in charge of spirituality, whose Nsaku Nevunda was the guardian of spiritual and political principles. Apart from the king, the Congo kingdom had a government, advisors, representatives of the clans, judges and a large army. The kingdom's army consisted mainly of the Yaka and the Mbundu, the warriors of the kingdom. During this period, the Congo people had a developed democracy through a system of choosing their leaders among the eligible members of the 12 Congo clans. To further exemplify its greatness, the Congo have subdivided their state into provinces and decentralized entities led by governors and heads of provinces dependent on Kingdom of Kongo, the king, and reporting to the central government. Among the provinces were Mbata, Soyo, Impangu, Impemba, Insundi, and Zita Dianza. On the grounds of the last royal palace, the current royal museum, we find the sacred tree called Yala Inku. Yala Inku is a tree dating back several centuries. It is a symbolic tree of the Kingdom of Kongo, a living monument. Its history remains fascinating. To find out more, we called up with the museum guide to explain.
As you can see, this place was the palace of the last king of the Kingdom of Kongo. The king used to live here, but at the moment, as the Kingdom of Kongo doesn't exist anymore, this place became a museum of the Kingdom of Congo. In the museum, they kept some objects or all the elements that represent the culture and the value of the Kingdom of Congo.
Sejam bem-vindos ao Museu dos Reis do Congo. O nome do museu é Museu dos Reis do Congo. Por quê? Primeiro, esta casa era a residência e palácio dos últimos reis. De dois, os acervos que nós vamos encontrar aqui dentro, na sua maioria, pertenciam aos reis. É por isso que deram o nome do Museu dos Reis do Congo. A mesma casa foi construída em 1901. Foi reabilitada em 2006. O museu, esta casa terminou de ser residência depois da morte do último rei, que faleceu em 1962. E daí a casa ficou assim. Então tornou museu em 1982. Então, o museu tem 6 salas. Na nossa primeira sala temos o retrato de alguns dirigentes que passaram no Reino do Congo. Aqui está o príncipe Dom Nicolau, que foi filho do rei Dom Henrique II. Este foi um dos povos Congo que beneficiou a ajuda da rainha do Reino de Portugal, foi estudar e trabalhou no governo português, no Ministério das Finanças. Foi um dos povos Congo que começou a reivindicar os direitos do povo Congo. Faleceu em 1845. No outro lado, temos a fotografia de um dos reis que passou a vida nesta casa como rei, em nome de John Lennon, Dom Pedro VII. Ele reinou de 1922 até 1955. Ele foi do município do Norte. Aqui fizemos uma representação do vestuário dos reis. Os reis vestiam assim tradicionalmente, de ráfia, com as flechas, porque a maioria dos reis eram caçadores. No outro lado, os reis vestiam assim, já na mistura da cultura europeia com a nossa. Quando o rei recebia as suas visitas na sombra da árvore, que está ilustrado aqui. É na sombra da árvore Yanaku, onde o rei recebia as suas visitas, julgava o povo, promulgava a lei e tomava posse na sombra da árvore de Yanaku, que está ilustrado aqui. O rei está aqui no trono, aqui estão os conselheiros, que nós chamamos de Congo Banda, e aqui são o povo que estava a ser julgado, e aqui o povo que estava a vir assistir o julgamento. Mas em cima temos uma estrela que nos traz uma história boa, porque a árvore é sagrada.
Like other advanced sectors, the Congo people developed the arts, including sculpture, ceramics, architecture, painting, writing, textiles, the performing arts, martial arts, and many other disciplines. Beyond oral communication, they had scripture comparable to the hieroglyphs, which some historians have called the Congo hieroglyphs. This can also be justified through the trajectory of the Congo from Egypt and Ethiopia. If the Congo really came from ancient Egypt, it is highly likely that they would bring with them their science, technology, as well as their sacred writings. They also developed ceramics and metallurgy and made tools such as machetes, knives, hoes for hunting, and kitchen utensils such as pots, spoons, and other such tools. The samples are kept in this Royal Museum of the Congo Kingdom in Banza, Congo, in Angola. In terms of the textile industry, Congo, before the 15th century of the Gregorian calendar, before the arrival of the Europeans, produced fabrics and were always well dressed. They dressed in silks, velvet, satin, cotton, and raffia, which perhaps justifies the attachment that many of today's Congolese have to fashion. According to the author Anne Hilton in her book, The Kingdom of Kongo, the fabrics in the Congo Kingdom were named according to their place of origin, their size, their value, and other such characteristics, and were also used for the manufacture of fine clothing, cushions, and coverings. Over time, Congo weavers became masters of their art. How to know the days during this period? In Ingipiti, in Katiopa, the Congo had developed a calendar. We could not find the remains, but we consulted the reconstructed version of the calendar by the Vuvamu, an African spiritual awakening movement based in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. In the Congo calendar, the year had 13 months, and each month had 7 weeks and 28 days. And a week counted 4 days: Konso, the first day; in Kenge, the second; in Sona, the third; and in Kandu, the fourth day. In terms of seasons, there were 5. Unlike the 2 seasons currently presented, there was the Umvalantete season, the first rains, the Kiansu, Kintombo, Kisu, and the season of Imbangala. Like all organized countries, the Kingdom of Kongo also developed a monetary system used for trade called Mbongo, represented by Lubongo, Lozimbu, Lutaku, and Insanga. The historian Raphael Basikama confirms that the Lubongo was a kind of paper money, a small square of raffia fabric measuring about 15 centimeters, while the Intaku were brass wires or copper bars of about 15 centimeters each. The Misanga were pearls, and Nzumbu shells, both harvested from the island of Luanda in the Atlantic Ocean and were used as coins. To learn more, we return to the city of Luanda, the current capital of the Republic of Angola. Luanda, this beautiful city located on the Atlantic coast, constituted the central bank of the Congo Kingdom and was a private domain of the king in Tinu a Congo. Under the orders of Mani Luanda, or the governor of Luanda, assisted by advisors and royal officials, all women were responsible for harvesting shells using baskets and sieves. From the salty waters of the ocean, the Congo also harvested salt and also made it by boiling water at a very high temperature, a process contrary to the theory that Europeans brought salt to Africa. As you can see, this is the island of Luanda. The island of Luanda was the central bank of the Kingdom of Kongo. This is where we came to harvest the shells which represented the currency in the Kingdom of Kongo. It's very fascinating. It represented money at the time. Before the 15th century, the Kingdom of Kongo, which was already very well developed, had relationships with several countries and had a large commercial network. In the 15th century, Europe was experiencing a great economic crisis. European authorities meet and decide to send their expeditions to Africa to find ways that can help them get out of their dire situation. The first expedition, led by Bartholomew Diaz, discovered Ghana, or Ingana, in Kongo. According to Congo sources, the Europeans were not looking for Ghana, but in 1482 of the Gregorian calendar, they sent a new expedition, led this time by Portuguese Diego Chao, who with his team was said to be looking for the way to the kingdom of the priest John, a believed Christian kingdom in India. They extend to deep Africa and discover the mouth of the Congo River. For Europeans, it was a great discovery because the Congo was an earthly paradise. The mouth of the Congo River is where Diego Chao first landed with his team in 1482. When they arrived, they found people with dark skin who welcomed them into their fraternity. The two very different peoples communicated by gestures because the Congo spoke in the beautiful Kikongo language and the Portuguese spoke their own. Through gestures, the Portuguese are said to ask the Congo the question, "Who are you?" The Congo people respond, "Tuena Bantu," which means we are humans. And in the Portuguese understanding, they believe them to be Bantu people. But Bantu in Kongo only means humans in the plural, and in the singular, human is Muntu. Therefore, Africans cannot be categorized as Bantu or semi-Bantu, because Muntu means human. Whether African, European, American, or Asian, we are all Bantu, and therefore all humans. The Portuguese say to the Congo, "We are Portuguese," and the Congo here in Putu Lukezo instead of Portuguese. It is through these encounters of different peoples and their misinterpretations that several distorted vocabularies are born, such as Nzadi, which means river in Congo, and which is distorted by the Portuguese to mean Zaire. During the first expedition, the Portuguese stop in Soyo and meet the head of the province, Mani Soyo, and are unable to meet the king of the time, Mani Kongo, in Nzinga a Nkulu. The city of Soyo, which was a gateway to the Congo kingdom at the time, is located in the north of Angola in the province of Zaire. Having not had access to reach the center, but being satisfied by the discovery of the riches of the Congo kingdom, the mission was accomplished. Diego Chao and his expedition returned to Portugal to report their findings to the Portuguese king, John II. Return to the city of Banza, Congo, the capital of the Congo Kingdom. In 1485 of the Gregorian calendar, after meetings and studies of Congo in Portugal, Diego Chao returns to the Congo Kingdom with a sizable expedition. This time they managed to penetrate deep into Congo and meet King Nzinga Nkulu in the city of Mbanza, Congo. During their meeting, the Portuguese asked for a bilateral partnership between the two states and asked King Nzinga Nkulu to give them 3,000 young Congo to go with them on a visit to Portugal to testify to their newfound brotherhood, and to speak to their seriousness, they grant this cooperation. Among the 3,000 young people is a son of King Nzinga Nkulu. Prince Mvemba Nzinga is part of the delegation. According to Congo sources, since they already owned several ships at the time, these 3,000 young people were escorted by Congo boats, which brought them to Portugal. In 1491 of the Gregorian calendar, the Portuguese returned once more to the Congo kingdom, this time with missionaries and the young Congo citizens who went to visit Portugal. Having been brainwashed whilst there, these young people have now adopted Christianity and decide to put aside their spirituality and cultural richness. It is said they turned white with black skin, as the Congo call it, Mindele Indombe, and who in turn will have the mission to evangelize their families in order to bring them to Christianity. This is the case for King Nzinga Nkulu's son, Mvemba Nzinga. The king abandons his culture and his spirituality and cedes his power to those he will now call father, as they now call him son. On May 3rd, 1491, the great King Nzinga Nkulu is also baptized by the European missionaries and take the name of João I John I. Nzinga Nkulu becomes disconnected from Nsaku Nevunda, the leader of Congo spirituality. The troubling conversion and baptism of the king is soon followed by that of the nobles of the kingdom, with the rest of the population being forced to follow, by the dictum of their newly converted king. The capital of the kingdom, Banza, Congo, is also baptized and renamed São Salvador, the Holy Savior. This grave situation leads to the start of the fall of the great kingdom and opens the door to the ignominy of the trading of African lives. The mass kidnapping and massacre of Congo people begins, along with the insatiable exploitation and looting of resources. Realizing his error, King Nzinga Nkulu wants to return to his spirituality, but the missionaries who surround him do not let him do so. And with the complicity of his son Mvemba Nzinga, having ambitions to become king, Nzinga Nkulu dies by poisoning. In Mbanza, Congo, after attending the traditional judgment, we take the opportunity to find out how the funeral rites of kings were carried out. With the guide, we go to a site called Singilu, located in the compound of the Royal Museum.
Kibabokele Sungili. Sungili. Vava basukudilanga emitwa ntote la vofuti. Ake basuku loko wa kubonge bisi kwenda Lunda kuna mpinge tati. Kuna mpinge tati donc salle de mort. Afinal salle de mort. Saine salle de mort we yakalanga. Tanda balakia vanga. Chiaba shanga kuna nsi ketwa njuyu kutwa muisi kakababa kije machichi mama mandudi. Ngudi za makenta bekonka notia tulo machichi mamana. Umuishi wa unakuza tele mumbundi ale maza mawonso no. Mena mevabaika chike kuiza seka. Ngambi za mungusu. Kana kutu dojani. Ke gola kwani yakuna kitu kejimaniza wonso no betuka momozunga wonso sezi province ya Reno du Congo kekina kejama beteka vanga tete lesonge muza yabo nani vinga vana podere ndio no vinga ubake lesonge yobo mwana yobo musikandeli ankaka yani ndio na ozika onkwandi muna honor za kimfu na kulike kibaba basukudilwanga ntoto fuudi diva bakironi kwa kuza sukudi abage sukudi teka lembu yakakampekebeza isa kuto nkangu ko ni vontote lo fui secreto makalanga begyansi kako mmono kwa wantu ndonga benakuzi benusha araka kabo mbazika jika na wonse ni zabungu totela bandiki demi matiam mu vitare confuso come fuliki akindonga kashangomeso soif de pouvoir de contote lo fui de quelle organizzare forza siamo cosa vanno invasiamo proprio per interpellare anche abbastanza.
Les symboles de la misère, de la pauvreté, de l'ignorance.
According to the sources from archaeologists, the kingdom had a cemetery dedicated to kings. There was an old cemetery a little far from the town of Banza, Congo, in Sumpi, and the second in Bella Vista, where very ancient kings are buried. A third cemetery is very visible today and is located in the middle of Banza, Congo. In these cemeteries are buried the Christianized kings. With the guides and members of Lumbu, the traditional chiefs, we go to discover this site. It's a sacred place, but has become a draw for tourism, but is not accessible without the accompaniment of traditional authorities who always perform a ceremony with malabu, ma and samba, palm wine and cola nuts, in honor of the ancestors. In this cemetery, there are several tombs of those kings who converted to Christianity.
yowane no bati ukindi kuna kwanda na kuzadia timinzanza yochonde mukuma jakuza za ikako susansu twe revo telezidi katukubenemba ndo manda kubalona timinge
After libation, it's time to share in samba, palm wine, and cola nut, kazu.
Os primeiros cemitérios, os mais velhos conhecem, andavam no Sumpe. O segundo cemitério andavam aqui na Bela Vista. Depois do século XIX, começaram a enterrar os reis que viviam naquela casa. É por isso nós vemos aqui, até atrasamos. Quando vinha, a avó conhece, quando vinha o representante da Unesco aqui na porta, a avó batia a porta, vinha a chuva, fugimos naquela escola aí. Aqui é sítio santo. Esta casa onde vamos ir, não, é por isso o cemitério é dos últimos reis do Congo, desde 1800, século XIX, até 1962.
Aquele pilar também é um cemitério.
Esse cemitério, esse rei não fez filho, lhe enterraram de pé. Hein, cara?
Isso é longa tradição da Congo. Se você nascer não deixou o filho, se morrer, vai ser enterrado assim.
Como ele foi rei, ficou de pé, o caixão dele ficava assim.
Se fosse que ele não era rei.
Não, se não era rei, ficava assim.
Mas não deixou o filho nem neta.
Como era rei, ficou de pé, como disse o avô.
Following the death of King Nzinga Nku, his son Mvemba Nzinga was crowned King of Congo with the blessing of both the Portuguese and the Catholic missionaries. But according to Congo sources, the ancients voted for Mpanzu Nzinga to succeed the throne, but he is overthrown by Mvemba Nzinga, aided by the Portuguese. During his reign, Mvemba Nzinga imposes Christianity on the entire population, who submit at the risk of being killed. This leads to the rapid expansion of the Christian religion across the kingdom. Congo schools, which existed long before the arrival of the missionaries, such as Kimpasi, Lemba, Buelo, and Kinkimba, are replaced by Western doctrine and Christian ideology. Mvemba Nzinga becomes a king of Congo and is loved by the Portuguese and the Vatican alike. Between the late 15th century and early 16th century of the Gregorian calendar, during the time of Nzinga Nku, Catholic missionaries built the first Christian church in the Congo Kingdom and in sub-Saharan Africa. And to symbolize the new reign of the Christian religion in Africa, the Europeans built this temple in the place where the Temple of Congo spirituality once stood. But to make this building special, the priests built it in a very special way. The guide tells us how.
Kulumbimbi é a primeira igreja nzanzambi anteteazi católico yatungu mu Afrika subsahariana keke batambulwa barei jingankulu tungo ansi mukuza tungo baba ambuta za wantu igreja yetu yakalabu ya mpungu tulendo basambilanga ku baba za baiza bosambilanga tawo kekose batambulo yaba missionario ntaba bana futi kwenda sambilanga kako kangu bana futi kwenda tungo baba baiza tungo ekipi kia kailoge kia iza mukuza vangi persekize ya nani
arkeologo mzila wili
kyo baiza yaika basango process za baika kumakulu wetu baiza sambilanga muna mwazi ya manga akulwa ya baiko baba ya Igreja Katolika yatungama muna 1491 republiki yote mei makalavo kiko yatungwa yawa mindele bayenda kwa rei bavo omuntu kalesa luchi la kuku wako masalu kyangolo kikalako bonso watu tamone construction moderne bafite vange vedia sawa chava mindele mu proteger ngangu zao kuma muntu sikamona sikazaya kwa ni betwa silo baba yani basi ilo siku kiko ba mana deposit de umezi obra imene bavana autorisation wantu baiza luta kwa ambuta za wantu busiba stranya aranga inzo ya matadi mampile maze faze yetu twamone parte superior parte inferior kwa vuandilange miku wikizi ikuwa kuyabwa ina dizi yabwa kata matadi mama matadi manka kama bauzara kwa nikozi portuguese mu construction za batungilana zizo zao exercise Papa Paulo II kiko kaizo mamumbaze Kongo ikorowe ya ile nikamona vava kavangile emise mais ya premier Igreja Africa Subsahariana.
In reality, this Catholic Church did not come out on its own, as the Catholic priests made the Congo people believe. It was built in secret, overnight by missionaries with the help of some Congo who became Christians. This ruin, kept until today, has become a monument, now classified as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Considered as the most Christian king of the kingdom, Mvemba Nzinga continues with his work of the Christianization of the kingdom, but for the Congo people, he is seen as a traitor. To better impose the Christian faith, he prohibits any practice related to Congo culture and spirituality. His own mother, Queen Impolo, the wife of Nzinga Ankul, whilst trying to heal the king's niece, will be one of the victims who will not escape the punishment and is buried alive to serve as an example. More recently, a memorial place has been made in her honor. The site is located at the airport of the current city of Banza, Congo. How did this happen? The guide tells us this very tragic story.
Ingutala kumunasakila kwa bisimba kabiza batutadisa mama kukabweni. Ingutala kumunasakila kwa bisimba kabiza batutadisa mama kukabweni. Yeya kulekesa weya unabukaluka ntoni mwendo kalenda mama unabukaluka ntoni mwendo kalenda salweya unabukaluka ntoni mwendo kalenda wakoka kuzala bayibingula pasifo malumani kavundulwa kalinzanda ya bala kasisiye
Kwa mpolo mbungu ofaka mesu kapo kamati komati mkero kukasisa tekuliyo wana unafuizo mafuka ya mango bongogo ya tekuliwa kuliyo wana kubati mkidi kwa nda mukuma za kuzazaika kutusa mkutue ebezidi kati kubena imbunga mara barinati nyinge
Mujirangi bachicha.
Makona.
Onge wizuna.
vembanzinga então semomo baka kabako mupyando kyoko yandi católico desabatizado kwenda kuna igreja ai nizige divanga nganga zanzambi boka kuna kwa mkango bayambulo sambile enzambi zo zote zidigwana ngati umuntu kalindi dikukira jaka mu machichi mu dikukiranga mkoto muntu le yani mpembanzinga waboko siku kuna kwa mkango wa bawam ameise makala oyani nkaka mpodo ndio ntekulwa mwana ndi wa mwana nke kwa iza baka mekimbevu za tiata kansaka za leke kokuza na basaka ni nango mwana buidi silo watu wawese tushawete usiku wa boko loketu kwa yani nkaka mpodo mko watu oya wanzenza bezidi yaba futi kuza kutushima mambo metekolo ke bayizidi koketa yelanga koketa jiukanga kabaluka kuna mpuku lwanzo ndizo kwenda badeli fodo unakaza hizi kalma range saka zale wakelo nlete untekulu sasukiti anta wasistente wana basistiranga yana kwanida kabatela mayo kwenda zaisa kwa yendi mpembanzinga waboke onsiku boketudi ukiraja kaka baenda bemfumu onsiku tuzeke ukalanga ndambu onsiku bonge wabokele boketu ukirya kako kansho mama entangu ketwaguka kwandiwa uke ya ndipo ntondele munakuza kunzaisa nchidima ukuja chimwa abakwenda vane raporo yasabe uludimene oyandi mmosi watelana yokwenda kuna kwa mama ndio mama mkembwa kutuvango mbashi kutekuba mashoka korowaro kwenda korowara kome rainha mai do rei Cristo mungu denhote ndio waleta babuza na baiza nafuku babake mkwala baiza jalo boye miti ya fioti abitula jalo kwala babake dende lina babu wazikatoli ko yankanda ngo ule tense kavana kunda kakisiwo bakazulu baba yawambanda bandati yendambu bavajeto mungu gati kunda kayandi yani mwana banda ekentangu yafuana bizilwa ka yongudi visit yandi watela maba inda gimbo ngudi babenja lungu wasonge kunda kangudi mame kunde vwanda ngudi na kavava kako kuza kota sotoke mtoto wakala wafukidi beninde dalo vene voz bali mtutudi mtoto ngudi mukaza kena unapupulo mtoto uluweke muamu mtoto ule finali kama jem ndonga ya wonso yakalovava donc umuntu wenda moke ni yonkwandie yenkenda kezamone yafundi yo tusuke gyala kondio yimuna mama ndi bo muntu nkake ngoyili kala zamuangana omomo mambo ke vanga ngamukana yimbanda banda zandi kuti umosi waza yawo ukati bazayaka kabukukembwa angudia shefu tukwenda.
During the reign of Mbemba Nzinga, the slave trade intensified in the Congo Kingdom. Congo citizens were captured and sold into slavery by European merchants under the blessing of the Catholic Church. They are brought to various countries: Brazil, Liberia, the island of São Tomé and Príncipe, the USA, Haiti, Guadeloupe, Jamaica, Guyana, Antigua, Barbados, Panama, Cuba, Colombia, Venezuela, Europe, and so many, many more. It is not only men with big muscles who are brought to work on plantations, but in the majority geniuses, scientists, doctors, engineers, politicians, and experts in agriculture, art, and architecture. They would be tasked to develop Europe, America, and build new cities and states for the new world. Those Congos sold as slaves were shipped from several ports such as Pinda in Soyo, Cabinda, Pointe-Noire, Luanda, and elsewhere. The slave trade destroyed and impoverished the kingdom. King Mbemba Nzinga can no longer hold his tongue. He writes letters to the Portuguese king, asking him to stop the horrible trafficking of the Congo people. He sends Nsaku Nevunda as ambassador to the Vatican to plead to the Pope to eradicate this system. The story of Nsaku's mission remains controversial, as he died just after a short time of arriving. According to Congo sources, the young ambassador was assassinated and then buried in the Vatican, where his tomb is kept until today. It should be noted that since the beginning of relations between the Congo Kingdom and Europe, the Congo has sent several ambassadors who have sat in several countries. Even Duarte Lopez worked as a Congo ambassador to Europe, although he was not originally from Congo. After the death of Mvemba Nzinga, and during the reign of his successors, the Congo Kingdom continues to be weakened by slavery, looting, cessations, and civil wars, thus reinforcing the Portuguese supremacy, who also used Yaka warriors to destroy the city of Banza, Congo. On the other side of Ndongo, the land of the Mbundu people, and in Luanda, where the central bank is located, secessions intensify, and the Kingdom of Kongo sees many of its territories ripped away and become independent and fall under the control of the Dutch, who have also taken as hostage the governor, father of Ngolo Mbandi Kilwanzi. Mbandi Kilwanzi fights back and regains control of the territory already independent from the Kingdom of Kongo and creates the Kingdom of Ndongo. The king is succeeded by his son, Ngola Kilwanzi, and then his daughter, the powerful and courageous Queen Nzinga Mbandi, who will come to defeat the Portuguese. The Kingdom of Kongo, Congo Diantotila, already weakened by the cessations of Ngoyo, Kakongo, and Luangu, sees its existence threatened by other much more serious intrigues. In 1663, King Gracia II, Dom Ingala II, Nkanga Lukeni dies. His son, Vita Nkanga Antonio I, succeeds him and becomes the Mani Kongo, the king. But before his death, King Nkanga Lukeni Dom Gracia II no longer maintained good relations with the Catholic missionaries and other such interlopers, who sought to impose on him their way of understanding and their way of handling public affairs. It is in this atmosphere of conflict that the young Vita Nkanga is called upon. His election did not please the Capuchin priests, who were quick to mount a smear campaign against him. And during this time, Vidal de Negreiros, the Portuguese governor in Luanda, also embarks on a conquest of exploitation of minerals of the city of Wandu. Faced with this situation of serious crisis, the Congo elites are not indifferent to the suffering of their people. In 1665, King Vita Nkanga, the very nationalist king, protests in a lively and energetic manner against what he considers to be the colonization of his kingdom. A rumor of the White Hunt circulates as tension increases. On July 13, 1665 of the Gregorian calendar, King Vita Nkanga calls upon the Congo people to mobilize in order to save the land of the ancestors against these foreign invaders. More than 900,000 combatants answer with a unanimous yes, and a war begins. The Congo fight hard and manage to disperse the Portuguese and their allies. On October 29, 1665, during the Battle of Mbwila, King Vita Nkanga is stabbed from behind by a Congo convert from the Catholic Church, a member of the Lassa clan. Seriously injured, the king falls to the ground. Unable to withstand the intensity of the enemy, the Kimbanga, commander-in-chief, orders the Kilombo, the army of Congo, to retreat until nightfall. The injured king is finally captured and is taken as prisoner. The Portuguese cut off his head and bring it to Luanda for the celebration of the victory. It was here, in this Catholic church located in present-day Luanda, that the head of King Vita Nkanga was brought back tied to a spear. Catholics celebrate victory, followed by a procession of thanksgiving during which, alongside the holy images that are ordinarily carried about on such occasions, the head of King Vita Nkanga is dragged along the ground. Victory for the Portuguese, but mourning trauma for the Congo Kingdom as it plunges more and more into chaos. On the side of Banza, Congo, the Congo embark on the destruction of the Catholic Temple of San Salvador, which for them constitutes the source of their misfortune. They now nickname it Nkulumbimbi, the evil ancestor. A few years later, Congo people tried to rise up through new leaders, including Nengwa Mafuta, an old prophetess, and Kimpa Vita, a young revolutionary aged about 20. They tried bravely to reunify the kingdom and rebuild the city of Mbanza, Congo, since destroyed by civil wars, demanding an end to slavery and the massacres of the Congo people and to restore the Congo spirituality that existed before the arrival of Christianity. Unfortunately and tragically, these brave women will not be spared. They too will suffer the same sad fate as King Vita Nkanga. In June 1706 of the Gregorian calendar, Kimpa Vita is arrested and tried with her husband and baby by the Capuchin Catholic priests Bernardo de Gallo and Lorenzo da Luca, acting on behalf of the Royal Council of the Kingdom of Kongo. On July 2nd, 1706, Kimpa Vita, with her baby in her arms along with her husband, were condemned to die at the stake and burned alive. Another horror, another tragedy, and another great misfortune that befalls the Congo people. The hope of an entire people is once again grotesquely dashed. The slave trade and the conflicts it has caused depopulated the whole region and the population densities of the time. 35 inhabitants every square kilometer fell dramatically to 5 inhabitants every square kilometer at the beginning of the 19th century. The dramatically weakened Congo power now manages to control only a small portion of the kingdom, notably the capital in Banza, Congo. A few kings managed to rule, but only at the whim of the Portuguese. To further weaken Africa and encourage the illicit exploitation of its lands, the European powers met in Germany in the city of Berlin in 1885, under the aegis of German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. This great meeting is called the Congo Conference. Many now call it the Scramble for Africa, and it leads to the great Kingdom of Congo being divided into several parts. France takes the northwest part, Belgium the center, and Portugal the south. Also recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site is Mbanza, Congo, Zita Dianza, the capital of the great Kingdom of Kongo. It has become a tourist site and a place of pilgrimage, attracting people from all over the world. The vast kingdom is no longer physically visible. Its territories scrambled into several states without Congo's consent. Its ornate architecture practically destroyed with certain sacred buildings buried underground. Buildings that will be unearthed by archaeologists in time to come.
Ce qui dit Cambouelier, mbunda mokweza na muzeo mono eza telefone ya communication bazako matakuna babeti ndondo batamboka wana kuna na bela bita bayokiso tieko kuma na sourde de gabo soki roi aza menacé ya bitumba kada toke eza na signification nango soki toki ya bitumba na ndenge bakoyoka bayebi deja kuna ke roi kuna aza menacé na bitumba wana faut tobongisa force tokende osala rapport place wana eza cimetière social anga espace nyonso oyo ozomona eza bacimetière na bacimetière kasi bacimetière oyo ozomona donc grâce à missionnaire catholique baroi baptisé yango basalisa bamissionnaire
But the little that remains will continue to remind us of its existence through its ruins, its museums, its cities, its historic sites, through its elaborate works held in the museums of Europe and America,